Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Thursday, January 17th, 2019. It's 4:16 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. And I have methane pulled up on CAMS, Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Services. I promised I'd show it to you if we had new data, and we had 2 days of data yesterday that were new, and we have Tuesday is new. The data for the 15th is new. But I wanted to show you where we left off yesterday with the 14th. I already have this movie loaded. I'll load it up again. And this is the Arctic view. And here's Greenland down here, Canada, Alaska, Russia, Novaya Zemlya, and so forth. And so what we saw with the data yesterday, here it's starting over, we had a huge release of methane. There was a wave that came up out of Russia and then coming up through the Arctic Sea and whatever little ice is there, and it's still coming up, and then it's also coming up in lower amounts but through the sea ice, and it's red coming up here through the sea ice. And what we're also seeing is a release from the land. This is Siberia, and I'm assuming that this is from melting permafrost. So I've got an article I'm going to share with you today about how the permafrost is melting even in the winter time. So it's not permafrost anymore. So let's look at the data starting with Tuesday. So here it is, starting with Tuesday. So we can see where it was coming up not only around Novaya Zemlya, but on it as well. And then some pretty big releases right here on the coast. And then red coming up all the way down to Svalbard, and on Svalbard and release to the south of Svalbard as well, and then this big orangey color coming down right down through the middle of the Arctic sea ice. So let's load this up with Tuesday as the baseline for the data, and then we'll see what they're forecasting. And their forecasting is pretty accurate because it's based on the data that was inputted from all the different regions and sources. So we're seeing it calm down a little bit in the forecast period, but still releasing. Here's a new wave coming up. It shows on Friday coming across the edge of the Siberian coastline here and into the ocean there. So now it's loaded up so we can watch what it's forecast to do. And it's showing a big release through the northern Siberia region. Like I said, I'm thinking it's the permafrost. And then there's a big release down here from Norway, Sweden, and Finland area. Now watch in the forecast period, watch it where it's going to, right here. It's building, and then here's a big release. See, it's black there from Friday going into Saturday. So we've got some stuff going on, I would say, and I think we're fortunate that we're able to see cams, and I will be reporting on it on a daily basis. And we can also see being released on the northern tip of Greenland. Okay, here's that big wave, but when that clears out, now watch right here. Here it's coming up around that northern edge. Now remember last summer when the ice melted, that old sea ice melted and lifted off on that northern coast of Greenland? So we're seeing the effects of that now in the wintertime, where when it refroze, it's thinner ice, and so now there's methane coming up from that coastline and from the sediments, it looks like. So we're going to pause that. We can come back to that if we want to. Now, I also have some more stuff pulled up. This is, let me show you on my Honeyview software here. This is from the Navy website with global sea ice thickness. This is the thickness at the Arctic, and so this is where we're at right now for January 17th, and we can see that it's not complete. I can blow this up. It's really thin and sparse to the northern part of Novaya Zemlya, and because it's just barely into the purple, and so it's not very good sea ice there. And we saw high temperatures there too, and so this is where that methane is coming up, and it's coming up out of the land area here, and then it's triggering a release coming up out of the ocean here, and all from here and all the way across. We saw that wave coming all the way across, and then we also saw it coming up around the northern part of Greenland and this little tippy point here where we can see that the sea ice is, there's a region there where it's not very thick right here on this little corner sticking out. So that's where the methane is coming up, and around here too. So there's that. So back to the thickness, it's going into the blue area now, so it is getting a little thicker. The extent is not really coming back. It's not filling up this eastern side of the Arctic Sea. As we can see there, it's almost like an invisible line almost holding it. It's come all the way to the coastline on the west and come out through the Bering Strait and is refreezing out here, but it's thin around the coast, and it is coming back a little thicker here on this northern part of Greenland, but the real thick old sea ice, there's just a little tiny bit of it like right around the coastlines. And so this aqua color, this color is about 2 to 2.5 meters thick, and the blue is between about 1.25 meters thick, and then going down into the dark blue-green, like this area here, that's about 1.5 meters thick. So the thickest is right just the little tiny part around the coastlines, and then where it's coming out here, that area is 2 to 2.5 meters. So it's not real thick, as we can see. And I have another thing. This is the Navy, the gift for 30 days, so it's 3 weeks back, and then it goes into a week in the forecast period. So we can see how it's been. I'll stop it. I'll go back to the beginning of this GIF. Okay, so this was starting on December 26th. We can see that there was not very much blue. It was mainly purple, but the extent was about the same. So even 3 weeks ago, the extent was about the same around this eastern part. So I'm just going to click on these days, and you'll see it gradually change. And we can even see area here where it's not up to the coastline of Siberia. That's where that East Siberia ice shelf is. So here we are today on the 17th, and then here's what they're forecasting it to happen in the next 7 days. Here's the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and that's the end of their animation. So they're predicting for it to come back a little bit more around Novaya Zemlya on this northern edge, and a little bit more down here to come down as Svalbard with thin sea ice, and that it thicken up some more out here in the middle. So that's what they're predicting. So here it is on the Navy website. Now I wanted to show you something else, because we were talking about, and there were some comments left about the temperature of the sea, and the salinity and things like that, and that the salt water or the ocean water starts freezing at 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a lower freezing point rather than fresh water. You know, fresh water is 32 degrees or 0 degrees Celsius. So this is sea surface salinity on the Navy website, and what we can see is that up here, okay, here's Greenland, and used to be, before the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean started really encroaching up here, most of the Arctic Sea was fresh water, and so it wasn't very saline, didn't have much salt water mixed into it. And we can see parts that are not very salty over here on the western edge and in the Beaufort Sea. But what we're seeing is that with the warmer temperatures and the Atlantic Ocean is moving up and encroaching more and more and more, coming into and mixing with the Arctic, and so is changing the salinity, and so that's why we're not seeing the sea ice come back, because it's going to have to get even colder on that sea surface. The temperature of the water is going to have to get colder for it to freeze, because it's more saline now, because it's come up into the red area up into 35. So, and we can see that, and this is the area where that methane is coming up. So I just found all that interesting. So I have another article that I want to share, and this is Robin's blog post of this article, and it's from the National Geographic, and it says new research from Siberia indicates some Arctic ground is no longer freezing, even in winter. And so it says data from 2 Arctic sites suggests some surface layers are no longer freezing. If that continues, greenhouse gases from permafrost could accelerate climate change. And if you want to see the original article from National Geographic, it came out yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, January 16th. And this is the National Geographic article. It's got a lot of good information here. They sent these teams out to do drill holes in the permafrost, and they found in areas where it normally would be frozen all year round, like in April, they drilled down and found thick slushy mud. And so here it is. In April, they sent the team of workers out with heavy drills. They bored into the soil a few feet down and found thick slushy mud. Zimov said that was impossible. Chersky, his community of 3,000 along the Kolyma River, is one of the coldest spots on Earth. Even in late spring, ground below the surface should be frozen solid, except this year, meaning last year, it wasn't. And then they talk about they show pictures of how the permafrost changes the landscape when it starts melting, and it makes these polygon forms in the land. And so if you got an aerial view of the land, these almost look like roads. I found this so fascinating. But this is where the permafrost is melting, and the stuff is coming up and forming these polygon formations in the land. It says polygons formed by the annual freezing and thawing of ice wedges just below the Earth's surface are visible from above near the northeast science station in Chersky, Russia. That's something. It almost looks like fields or something, but I don't know how big those are, but I found that interesting. But this is a long article with lots of research and showing methane bubbles coming up, and there are lots of articles out there now talking about this, and they say that the surface is warmer when you get a lot of snow. It holds the heat in as well. And here's an interesting picture of the amount of permafrost in the northern hemisphere, and this darker blue shows continuous permafrost, 90 to 100%. And look, all of Siberia and parts of northern Russia is almost all built based on permafrost. So if that melts, then all their cities are built on that, their infrastructure, their roads, their pipelines, their sewer, their gas, everything. And so all of that will be shifting and moving, because when this permafrost melts, it creates holes in the ground. It creates pockets where the ground has to settle and reform, and so the whole landscape will change as this is melting, in addition to releasing carbon and methane and all that stuff. And then we can see Greenland has it around the coast. a lot of these Canadian islands are just all permafrost, and then Canada, a lot of Canada, the Yukon, and a lot of Alaska is continuous permafrost. So this is a very serious situation for people living in these communities, and they're drilling up there, and you know, it's a mess. It's a mess. And then this lighter blue-green is 50 to 90%, and there's a lot of that. And then sporadic 10 to 50%, and isolated 0 to 10%. So it's throughout this definitely the Arctic region, which is this circle, which includes, I think it's 60 degrees north latitude and further north, but further south than that even. So it's a huge deal. But they're saying it's from, the reason it's happening is from the air warming, but my theory is that the Earth is warming up from the inside for whatever reason. Nobody knows, but I think it's warming up from the inside. And here's a big crater that's been formed that's 300 feet deep as a result of melting permafrost. Look at that. That looks ugly. That is very freaky looking. I would not want to be there. So anyway, I'll leave the link below, and people can read this article if they want. It's a really good article, and it confirms what we're finding. And so if that's happening, then that would confirm why we're seeing these waves of methane just being released all the way across Siberia, even in the wintertime, because it's melting in the wintertime. Everything is melting. It doesn't matter what season it is. It's all melting. So let's go to our comments. And starting under the video from yesterday, Marcia Noren says, "Thank you, Margo." Well, you're welcome, Marcia. Thank you for being here and chiming in. Love you very much. And just thank you for being here. Valhalla56 says, "This is the only channel I get this type of info. Thanks." You're welcome, Valhalla, and thanks for chiming in. Thanks for being here. Gary Zod says, "It's always good to hear your voice, Margo. Keep up the good work. God bless." Thank you, Gary Zod, and thank you for your comment. God bless you too. Then that was a comment under my Jordan Maxwell interview, saying they love Jordan Maxwell. Then Gary Rucker says, "The ice in that area is more like slush. Salt water starts freezing at 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The water on top is fresh water. Salt water is heavier, so the fresh water freezes at 0 Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. I hope that info helps. Thanks for your work." Yeah, Gary, that makes perfect sense, and I was doing some more research, and it depends on what the salinity level is as to what the freezing point is going to be. And so at different parts of the Arctic, it'll be freezing at different temperatures because, you know, it's all different salinity levels. So it's not going to have to be as cold where you have more fresh water, but it will have to be colder to make good ice where you have the salt water. So when you get that the ice forming where it's more saline, it's is going to be slushy. It's not going to be good ice, is what he's saying. Good comment. Thank you, Gary Rucker. Jaybird says, thanks, Margo. What freaks me out too is seeing the vast areas of methane in the green areas of the scale. Green range is about 1900 to 2000 parts per billion. That's after they changed this color ledger in December. So it didn't used to be that way. Anyway, I remember a few years ago when the highest methane readings were around 1700 to 1750 parts per billion. It's awesome to realize that all those dark red waves that you're pointing out are spreading out and making vast areas of methane concentration go to higher and higher concentrations on pretty much a daily basis. And then he left another comment. I took a picture of the methane map that you presented this morning. I'm storing it on my phone so I can refer to it on a regular basis and probably see a long-term rise in overall methane level. Yeah, and I recommend people do that, and this is one of the reasons that I'm including these daily methane reports in with the earthquakes. And I just figured they kind of go hand in hand, because if we don't record the data right then, it's hard to find it. It's hard to go back and find it. And if you go back to my older videos, my first methane video I did was from April 28th. It's totally different. It's totally different, and it's like so I'm documenting, and that's why I'm doing this. Okay, then Devin Cook leaves a comment under my 5G satellites are heating up the planet or something. Devin says, OMG, wah. Is that why whenever I yawn I hear high-pitched sound? I live in Hills M. I don't know where that is. Could be. I'm sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies, and I can hear Wi-Fi when I go to an area that's Wi-Fi'd, like a Starbucks or somewhere. I get high-pitched sounds, it can be from different things. It can also be from toxins in your body. I know when my body is really toxic, or it's detoxing, I'll get a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I mean, I have kind of a high-pitched sound going on all the time, but it even gets worse. But thanks for tuning in and your comment, Devin Cook. Then the last one is from Daegu is a Skank, whoever that is. I don't remember seeing you before, Daegu, but thank you for being here. It says, hi Margo, I love your work. Thank you. Your voice is amazing. Thank you, Daegu. This methane issue is a more serious problem for us than most people can comprehend, as are the unusually high temperatures in the northern areas, especially in January. By the way, seawater/saltwater freezes at 28 degrees Fahrenheit, not 32 degrees. Right, we just went over that. So he's reinforcing that. So those northern sea waters are nowhere near freezing and producing beneficial thick ice. Peace and love, Ben. Exactly right, Ben. Exactly right. And thank you for being here and joining us, going down these rabbit holes and watching this data and your insightful comment. Right on. So that's exactly right. So people can be following these things and looking on your own at all these websites and seeing what's going on, and seeing the breakdown, and it's all coming down like dominoes. We're seeing the breakdown, and it's in the middle of winter, so this summer is going to be awful if we're still here. I don't know if I'm going to be here. I'm having a hard time with this eclipse, frankly. The energy from this eclipse is literally making me almost incapacitated. And I don't know if anyone else is feeling that way, but the energy has shifted, and also the magnetic pole is moving. I know there are a lot of articles out there about that and lots of YouTube videos, and I'm sensitive to that. But I'm telling you, this week, every day is worse than the day before for me for functioning. And it's not that I'm sick. It's just the energy is just affecting me. It's crazy. So I will attempt to keep bringing you this data and the videos on a daily basis. You know, I tried keeping them shorter, but by the time I get through going over an article and showing methane and doing some discussion and showing other stuff and sea ice and going over comments and stuff, and then going into my earthquakes, you know, it just turns into a long video. But people can break it up. You can watch part in one time and pause it and then come back to it. And I'm just doing this as documentation because time is short, and I think that we're going to see a huge ramp up, especially in the earthquakes. And we're seeing it this week, especially in the magnitude of the earthquakes and the numbers. And with coming up with this full wolf moon, blood moon thing coming up Saturday night into Sunday, and it's gonna, I don't think it's gonna calm down. I think it's gonna get worse. So what we're showing is USGS all magnitudes for the last 24 hours. We're showing 240 earthquakes worldwide. And remember that USGS does not report on the smaller magnitude earthquakes outside of the U.S. region. So if you want to see those, you have to go to EMSC or some other earthquake reporting site. So we're going to start with 2.5 magnitude and higher worldwide here on USGS. And it's showing 45 on the map. And so we're going to be looking especially at these red lines where these tectonic plates all come together. And so the first one that's going to be coming off the map is this one of 4.8 near Shizunai, China. That happened yesterday at 6:23 p.m. Pacific time. All these times I have them marked for me for Pacific time. So all the times I'll be calling them out, and it'll be Pacific time. That was 70 kilometers deep. So let's look at that. It was in the ocean just to the south of this island, Hokkaido, that's how you say it, just to the south of that island. So with it being in the water, it probably didn't do any damage, but we can see that's right next to that red line. While we're here, we had one up here in the Kuril Islands. It was a 4.6 that happened this morning at 7:08 a.m., 10 kilometers deep. I'm going to open this up a little bit. Now let's go. Here's one up in China, a 4.7 near Kuka, China. Happened at 5:32 this morning, 10 kilometers deep. Then over here near Greece, these two happened within 10 minutes of each other. The first one was a 4.5 right here to the south of Greece, south of Coroni, Greece, that happened at 7:36 last night, 22 kilometers deep. The second one was a 4.4. It happened today at 1:46 p.m., 10 kilometers deep. So that's in the Mediterranean Sea there, right on that red line. Then down here in the Arabian Sea, there was one right on this red line, a 5.1 on the Carlsberg Ridge that happened at 2:51 this morning, 10 kilometers deep. Now let's move on over into the South Pacific and Indonesia. Here was a big one, 5.4. They're saying 133 kilometers east-southeast of Mohian, India, but it's actually north of Sumatra. See, right here, northwest of Sumatra. This one happened at 6:53 p.m. yesterday, 99 kilometers deep, right next to this red line. Coming on down in Indonesia, here's this one near the Philippines of 4.7 that happened at 4:22 this morning, 10 kilometers deep. It was in the ocean. Down here was a 4.8 near Sarangani, Philippines, 128 kilometers deep. Happened at 7:14 this morning. Here's one right on the red line, 4.6 near Tobelo, Indonesia, 10 kilometers deep. That happened at 3:11 today, p.m., 3:11 p.m. Now we've got a cluster of large earthquakes right here to the north of Papua New Guinea. There's an earthquake that's not earthquake. There's a volcano going off there too. I can't remember which one it is. But we have 11 showing here that are all stacked up, clustered, all in the same area in this Bismarck Sea. So I'm going to start down here. This big one, the biggest one, was a 6.1, and it happened at 7:06 this morning Pacific time, 10 kilometers deep. And they're calling it 177 kilometers southwest of Lorengau, Papua New Guinea. I guess southwest of this island, but it's right here to the northeast of the mainland. Then there was a 5.2 at 7:14, so 8 minutes later, 10 kilometers deep. 4.8 at 7:23, 10 kilometers deep. 4.9 at 7:29, 10 kilometers deep. 4.6 at 7:33, 10 kilometers deep. 5.1 at 7:48, 10 kilometers deep. 4.8 at 8:15, 10 kilometers deep. 5.6 at 8:53, 10 kilometers deep. 4.6 at 9:12, 10 kilometers deep. 4.8 at 12:34 p.m., 10 kilometers deep. And a 4.7 at 1:07 p.m., 10 kilometers deep. So that was the last one that came in. So those were all aftershocks after that 6.1. Now I'm just curious, so let's go to the EMSC website and see what they have reported for down there, that area. Look at that. Let's come down here. See, and they show like a 3.1 near the southeast coast of Australia and so forth. Bismarck Sea. Okay, that's where the started with the 6.1, where it says Bismarck Sea. Those are the ones. So I'm not seeing smaller ones down there. I think they got them. I think USGS got them. I'm not seeing smaller ones being recorded down there in the Bismarck Sea. I thought there would be, but that's not the case. It doesn't look like. So there's that. Then down here at Vanuatu, there was a 5.2 near Sola, Vanuatu, that happened last night at 6:54 p.m. 197 kilometers deep. So that's a deeper one, right on the red line. Here's 4.5 near Fiji that happened at 6:01 a.m. today. 611 kilometers deep, very deep. Now that will be causing plate movement around the world. That will reverberate. And if that had been bigger and that deep, it would have really caused a lot of movement. Here's a 4.7, just further south of that, at 2:27 p.m. today, 533 kilometers deep. So another deep earthquake right there on that red line. And remember, we reported on New Zealand and their issues down there with methane and all that stuff. So there's that. Now, over here in the South Atlantic, right, well, this south of Africa, southwest of Africa, there was a 5.3 magnitude right on this plate line, the Antarctic plate line. 5.3 that happened at 2:16 p.m. today, 10 kilometers deep, right on that line. So that gets all of those. I think we got all of those. We got this one. Okay. Now let's go over to South America. We're seeing a 3.9 near Villa Presidente Frei. I just butchered that. Nunoa, Santiago, Chile. That happened last night at 11:39 p.m. 114 kilometers deep. Here was a 4.4 near Villazón, Bolivia. That happened last night at 9:05 p.m. 302 kilometers deep. So that was very deep. That was in Bolivia. Actually, look, it was across the border. Here's Bolivia. So it says 62 kilometers west of Via Zone, Bolivia. So it was actually in Argentina, right there. Very deep. Now let's go down here to this Gulf of California. We saw an earthquake here yesterday, like a 4.1 or something, at Libertad, New Mexico, not New Mexico. Now we have a 5.3. It's right off the coast of Baja California, the peninsula, but right next to that red line. And this happened at 4:56 this morning, 10 kilometers deep, 5.3. So this is that San Andreas fault line coming down. And that's concerning because, see, we had some right up here, right on that fault line, that were higher magnitude. Here's a 3.1 in Calipatria and a 3.1 at Nyland. So right here at the south edge of that Salton Sea. And here's another one, a 3.9. So there's 3 in the magnitude 2.5 and higher right down there. And we'll see more in that area when we go to all magnitudes. So that's concerning. So movement is happening. Things are happening. Now let's go to Dominican Republic. We have 3 earthquakes that were above 2.5 magnitude down here. We had a 3.2, 103 kilometers deep, 3.1, and 3.2. That one was 69 kilometers deep. Now let's go to all magnitudes and look at Dominican Republic. There were 5. So we're seeing less here today. So the other 2 were a 2.3 and a 2.0. So we saw fewer earthquakes, but bigger magnitude. So let's stay in our all magnitudes map and look at Hawaii now. We're seeing 7 on the map here. I'll call them off. Here's a 1.8, 1.8, 1.9, 1.9, 2.9. This was near Honau-Napupu that happened at 1:57 p.m. today, 44 kilometers deep. And a 1.8 at the same place. And a 2.0 at Ferns. So let's see where this one was. This was, looks like right on the coastline. Right there. Next to that red line. There's a, oh, that's a road. Never mind. Well, that could disturb the road, but probably not at that magnitude. Okay, we got those. Now let's go up to Alaska. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in northern Alaska. Let's see 2.5 magnitude and higher in Alaska first of all. We've got 5 on the map here. We had a 3.3 near Esther that happened yesterday at 9:17 p.m., 15 kilometers deep. 3.7 near North Nenana, Alaska. Happened at 4:13 this morning. 15 kilometers deep. 2.5, same place, at 4:16. So that was like 3 minutes later. 0 kilometers deep. 3.0 near Kodiak, down here in the Gulf of Alaska, right next to that red line. At 7:34 this morning, 21 kilometers deep, and 2.5 near Anchorage, near Big Lake. So these two were right next to each other there. So let's go to all magnitudes now up here in Alaska. Make sure I get them all, including these over in Canada. There are 84 on the map today. So we had 5 that were 2.5 magnitude and higher, and then so we had 79 that were lower than that in magnitude. So we can see that there were a lot of small ones, mainly in the 1s range, not many in the 2s range, mainly in the mid 1s to upper 1s range. So if we zoom in, we can see the cluster down here north of Anchorage again, and we can see them peppered around, and the small ones count because it shows movement, and we can see them around these larger ones that happened as well. Let's see, that was a 2.0 near Skagway. Okay, now let's come on down into the United States and Canada region. Right here on this Juan de Fuca plate, right on the line between the Pacific plate and Juan de Fuca, we had a 4.2, and they're calling it west of Port Hardy, Canada. 4.2, 10 kilometers deep, and it happened last night at 7:23 p.m. So this is part of that Cascadia subduction zone, right on the line. So that's going to cause more movement further down the San Andreas fault line, is my thought. And then here was one right on the coast, a 2.8 near Port Angeles East, Port Angeles East, Washington. That happened last night at 7:47 p.m., 42 kilometers deep. While we're here, well, let's see if there's anything else. Let's cover the rest of the United States first. Here was one 1.3 near Ridgely, Tennessee, and then a 2.9 near Anthony, Kansas. So there's that. Now let's go up to Yellowstone. That looks pretty active. Let's see how many are in the map here. We've got 11 on the map in this Yellowstone region. This whole area is the Yellowstone region. That Yellowstone caldera. Okay, I'll call them off. 1.1 Deer Lodge, Montana, and you can see them pop up blue over here. 1.0 Manhattan, Montana. 1.2 Polson, Montana. 1.0 Dillon, Montana. 2.0 West Yellowstone, Montana. Okay, that's right down here. 1.6 Seeley Lake, Montana. 0.9 Lima, Montana. Here's a minus 0.5 So that was a microquake at West Yellowstone, Montana. Point 2 West Yellowstone, Montana. 0.9 West Yellowstone, Montana. And a 1.6 near Mullen, Idaho, right up there. So let's look at these, all of these down here. This little West Yellowstone. Okay. So there's that one. The 0.2 is over there. Minus 0.5. They're so small it's hard to see. 0.2. Okay, so they were all in this region here. So there's movement. Definitely movement. Now let's see what else we have. Here's one on the border between Idaho and Utah. There was a 1.0 4 kilometers deep. Now down here in Utah, a 1.7 near Enterprise, Utah, 9 kilometers deep. And we saw several larger ones down here. I think it was yesterday. Okay, let's look at, okay, we've got Oregon covered, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. Let's go to Northern California. Here's a 1.7 at the geysers. That's all. So only a 1.7 at the 1.7 at the geysers today. And then here's one in the San Francisco area, 3.5 near Piedmont. That happened today at 6:11 a.m. We saw one there yesterday too. Coming over here. By the way, we're in the middle of a winter storm. We got a little break in the action today, but it rained in Reno all night last night. It snowed up in the mountains. Mount Rose got about 2 feet of snow overnight, and the ski resort had to close because the road was closed, and they had an avalanche and I don't know what all. It's a mess. And we've got more coming. More snow coming tonight. So it's a round of storms, and Northern California is a mess. I saw a video of from Oroville where the streets were flooded and the police were like driving through the streets trying to see if anybody needed help. So okay, down here near Walker Lake is a 1.5 and a 1.6. And while we're in the same area, let's see, here's a 1.9 magnitude explosion at Gabbs. They're still blasting, doing stuff. Down here you had one right in the middle of Mono Lake. That's Mono Lake right there. A 1.3. Then here's a 2.4. Here's Mammoth Lakes with the caldera, the Long Valley caldera. There are 12 on the map here. They were small. The biggest one was that 2.4. The next biggest one was a 1.8. But we have 12 all in this region. So that's more active, including this one down here. Let's look at southern Nevada. Here's another little one. a 0.7. Here's another explosion. Here's a 2.0 near Enterprise, Nevada. This is south of Las Vegas. So that was a big explosion to cause a 2.0 earthquake. This happened today at 3:25 p.m. 0 kilometers deep. So that was right at ground level for whatever reason. Then we got some more up here in the Nevada's test site area. Now, let's see if we got any more coming down. Okay, coming down the San Andreas fault line, we've got a 1.5 at Pinnacles and a 1.5 at Pinnacles. Here's one down here. Tehachapi, a 1.4. Here's a 2.0 near Ojai. And now we're coming into Southern California, the Los Angeles area. And I already covered that one down in Mexico. We covered that one. So, let's see if we can get all these Southern California ones on the map here. Okay, 65 here on the map. And I already showed you the ones that were 2.5 magnitude and higher. They were down here on the edge of the Salton Sea. So we can see a whole cluster happening down here. And this fault line, here's this fault line that runs right through it. So it's right next to that fault line. So there's 17 showing right here. 17 earthquakes. So there was a 3.1 right here. 2, 3.1. I'm not going to call them out if they're under 2. And the 3.9, that was the biggest one. And then the others were in under, like between 1 and 2, 1.5 and 2, or 0.9 and 2. So that's concerning. Let's look at Kauai and see. See, they're piling up down here again. And included these little ones around. There are 34 on this map area. And these are small. Under 2s. These are all under 2s. So I think that's it. Oh, let's look at this one in San Diego. A 1.3 happened near National City at 1:49 this morning, 11 kilometers deep. Here's one in the ocean, just near Long Beach. It was a 1.5 that happened last night at 10:55 p.m., 8.6 kilometers deep. Did we see this one? 2.8 near Malibu. And 2.0, we saw the Ojai. Okay, so we can see they're coming in. So let's see what else has happened since we started our report today. Okay, I think we've got everything. We got that one in Indonesia. We got that 4.7 near Fiji. We got that one southwest of Africa. Those were the latest larger ones. And we can see there are some smaller ones coming in up here in Alaska. The red ones are coming in now. So the last one was a 1.9 near Big Lake. So I will wrap it up for today. Again, my name is Margo, and I do believe time is short, and I recommend that everyone get their spiritual house in order, because no one knows the day or the hour. And I love you all very much. I pray for everyone all the time. And until next time, God bless you. Go in peace, and good night.